Hello, I'm Diane Birnholz. I was a federal prosecutor, and you may have heard on the news that charges were dropped against Luigi Mangione. So, what exactly happened and what are the consequences? Luigi Mangione was charged in New York in an 11 count indictment alleging that he murdered Brian Thompson. And two of the most serious charges in the state indictment were murder in the first degree in furtherance of an act of terrorism and murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. Now, these two terrorism counts would require the state to prove that Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson was intended by Mangione to, quote, intimidate or coerce a civilian population. Now, that's the language from the statute. The defense wanted these terrorism charges thrown out, and they argued to the judge that the prosecution was overreaching in charging Mangione with terrorism and that the terrorism statutes were simply not intended to apply here, where you have one man shooting one man. The defense, in essence, is saying, look, this is New York City. We know terrorism, and this is not terrorism. The defense argued that allowing the two terrorism charges here to stick would stretch the meaning of the word to an absurd degree. In the state, the DA's office argued that the murder should fall within the meaning of terrorism because of the way it was committed. It was a shooting out in public on a midtown Manhattan sidewalk at the beginning of a very busy day. This was during holiday season on the day of the Rockefeller tree lighting, and that, in the words of the DA, Alvin L. Bragg, it was a frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and attention and intimidation. Now, both sides had good arguments, but the judge disagreed with the DA and sided with Luigi Mangione's defense and threw out these two terrorism charges, ruling that the state's case was legally insufficient on the intimidate or coerce requirement. In his ruling, the judge wrote, while the people place great emphasis on defendants' ideological motive, there is no indication in the statute that a murder committed for ideological reasons, in this case, the defendant's apparent desire to draw attention to what he perceived as inequities or greed within the American healthcare system, fits within the definition of terrorism without establishing the necessary element of an intent to intimidate or coerce. So now, these two very serious state charges are gone. However, Luigi Mangione still faces the 9 remaining counts in New York, including what I'll call a regular second-degree murder charge with no terrorism requirement. He also faces charges in Pennsylvania, where he was arrested. And most significantly, Luigi Mangione also faces federal charges where prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Please leave any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you very much.